Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Keep the Line Moving, the podcast designed to talk about leadership, life, and inspiration. I am your host, Chris Gargano. We thank you for being part of the journey each and every week, for recommending the podcast to your family, friends, coworkers, writing reviews. You know we appreciate it. And that is why we're going to level set this week. Keep the Line Moving is the title. Why is that the title? Well, Keep the Line Moving means doing what you need to do, taking your part in keeping the lineup moving and being unselfish and doing what is best for the team. That is the concept that we talk about each and every week on this podcast. Selfless, servant leadership, that mentality. How do we make the team win? How do we do this? Those are the conversations. That's what we talk about, and we uncover the personal stories of our guests. Speaking of stories, we will talk about the art of storytelling with Rod Robertson, our guest. Rod is the managing partner of Briggs Capital, author of 3 well-received books on entrepreneurship. Look I've got 2 of them right here. The third one is behind me on those shelves. He's a 3-time business owner. He's been deep in the entrepreneurial world for decades, selling, buying, and coaching thousands in their pursuit of becoming business leaders. He has personally led over 100 transactions, and he's a regular motivational and guest speaker at forums ranging from the Harvard Business School and the Babson MBA program, among others, to foreign governments seeking access to U.S. capital and talent. Let's get rolling with this conversation with Rod Robertson. All right, Rod, it is wonderful to see you. We've known each other for a number of years, and over the course of those years, you have given me tremendous advice. You've sent me your books. You have been just a mentor. You've been somebody that is always cutting to the chase and giving me practical advice, and for that, I appreciate it very much. But I'm sure I'm not alone. I'm sure you do that for other folks.
Well, a lot of people don't like me after I give them advice because what I say is I only traffic in the truth.
See, Rod, that's the key. And that's what I said. Your style, I love your style because it's straight to the point. You have asked me questions over the years where I said, wow, I can't believe he's asking me that, but I love answering it because it's getting us further along. So what is your philosophy? Do you have one when you approach folks that either going to buy, and we'll get into the particulars of what you do, when they're going to sell a business or they're entrepreneurs? Describe to me your style per se.
I think it's all about the truth. And being a truth sayer in business is so important. Like I do business in 25 countries, and I tell them my word is iron, and iron is my word, like the great Genghis Khan. Because you know what? When you're traveling far and wide and you're meeting people really fast on the fly, you got to check people out, and people have to be men and women of their word, but it has to be quickly backed up by a contract if there's money involved. So many people just rely on a handshake, and I'm dealing with 5 or 6 situations now where there's terrible misunderstandings now that the cake's getting cut. And, so you really want to paper it up, especially with friends and family, because that's where the most mistakes are made when you take 20 grand or 10 or 50. And a lot of these people, if you're starting a business or having them invest in your business or buying a business, you really have to spell it out for them, because most of these people are amateurs and they're not around the game. And there can be a lot of hard feelings. And besides mishaps with the business, you can destroy part of your social life, part of your family life, and friends and families. Investing is a treacherous playground.
Okay, so let's level set, because you've given so much wisdom already and we're a few minutes into this. So let's look at this. I was thinking about you today and doing research and knowing you. So when you walk into an old-fashioned cocktail party and they say, "Hi, Rod, nice to meet you," what do you do, Rod? How do you answer that question?
You know what? I tell them I help create wealth for business owners, and I more enjoy young entrepreneurs and showing them the path, so that 80% of entrepreneurs fail and everyone loses their shirt, and it gets very, very disturbing. So I'd like to help truncate that process and allow people to not misstep. I remember when I bought my pet food company. I had no idea what I was doing. This is quite a while ago. And then I stumbled all the way through it, and somehow I did well and exited it. But it was painful, and I wish I had a mentor and a coach to take me through all these harrowing steps in a life cycle of a company.
Do you know, by getting to know the business owner, the entrepreneur, whether they can make it or not by the words they're using, the attitude they have, the positioning in the marketplace? Or do you still need to do a deep dive despite the fact you have tons of experience?
You know, there's so many bullshitters out there, including me at times, because I'm a storyteller. We're all storytellers if we're going to be good. So, perfecting the art of storytelling is a whole nother thing that we could discuss. But, the numbers don't lie unless you're forecasting out into the future. So when, people, the big storytellers, the big braggy boys and girls, we sit back with them, and I always like to see the numbers.
So that's a metric worth paying attention to, obviously. But you also know it is leadership, right? You and I have talked about that. And I do want to get to storytelling, for goodness sakes. That's one of my pillars as well. But you don't judge the product, right? You judge the numbers and the leader. So if you were to give a percentage of those two, the product is third, I would think. But tell me about your philosophy with what it takes to lead as an entrepreneur.
People always ask that question, and I've had the good fortune to guest lecture at the Harvard Business School, all these other schools and all these places, but it really comes down to, you don't need all of that. If you can free think and you have a great idea, you can't hog the ball and try to do it yourself. When you're an aspiring entrepreneur, the last thing you want to do is do everything. You know what? Because the numbers, you need somebody that does the numbers. If you're great at technology and you're a thought leader, awesome. But what you need to do is find people on a fractional part-time basis who can do your numbers, who can do your social media marketing.
So, Rod, you look at the landscape of business today, and I know you read all the time. You're doing research, for goodness sakes. This is your industry. But articles just this week about staggering percentages of 77% of people think that their workplace is toxic, and they use vacation time or sick time to get away from their businesses. That is not healthy. I try to figure this out. I try to help people. That's my industry. That's my product. But as you look at this, people are going to try to start businesses. What would you say to somebody who has a half-baked idea, but they have a passion and they want to just get the heck out of the industry they're in?
There's two ways to look at it. You can take the path where you spend 80% of your time slugging it out at work, saving money and doing it, and doing your entrepreneurial thing for like 20% of your time, or whatever passion that you have. Or you can switch it around and just go for it and not have the financial security, push all your chips on the table, and victory or death. So if you're going to go the victory or death route, you want to truncate before actual death comes. And one thing to talk about is when you're starting your business is to become what they call judgment proof. You don't want to go out there, start a business, risk all your time and your money, and have it fail, but then all of a sudden, oh my God, you owe people money, or you owe the bank money, and the creator of the business dogs you into the next phase of your life.
You brought up storytelling, and I value that. I did it for 34 years. I'm still doing it. We all do it. Let me ask you what your philosophy and the value of storytelling in business is.
Yeah, well, you are an extreme storyteller with your NFL and Major League Baseball. I mean, everything you did was great. You were with really smart people, and you had to hone your storyteller, and that's why I was drawn to you, because in our first couple of conversations, as a storyteller, you're in the top half of one. I don't know, you're right up in the pantheon of heroes, and the storyteller, you have to have, like people always say, the elevator pitch. But you have to gauge your audience. And if you're going to approach people on your idea, first you have to establish your personal credentials with that person and not just blurt out into the business game. So, you want to lay out in 30 seconds, 45 seconds, and practice with people about who you are and what you are, so that you have the respect before you get into your business proposition. Without bragging, you have to get your credentials out there subliminally, let them know that you're a player in your own right. Then at the end of your storytelling about yourself, you build a bridge into the idea you want to talk to them about. You have to bridge over and lead them into that segment where, you say, I have this unbelievable idea that's getting traction, and I'd like to share it with you. I don't know if this is an appropriate time, but the sooner the better, because it really it could be a lot of fun for you. It could be a moneymaker for you or people that you know. I think it's certainly worth your time, and I'd like you to pay me the respect of listening to me. I've been on both sides of the fence where people approach me or I'm approaching people all day long. We represent sellers of businesses and or companies. We're working with an AI company now in Hollywood. We're working with French companies, and everything is about the story. So with the younger people that work with me over the years, I always say, before we do anything, tell me the story. Tell me your story and your introduction. And it's a lot of fun. And then once you get in the rhythm of it, it's okay. But it's pretty shocking that people don't know how to tell their own story or their own intro piece.
Listen, Rod, thank you so much for the kind words. And this is so valuable. People listening to this that heard what you just said, I cannot tell you the value in that. You and I are so like-minded, and we identified that years ago in this realm of the value of storytelling. Can I just tell you a story? And then, I want to double down on this premise. There was a young man that I was introduced to who was a graduate student, and he was having difficulties getting a job. And I told him, and I'm not going to say his name, I said, you're answering at about 5% of the depth in which you have as a storyteller. You're on the surface. You like to write. Why do you like to write? You like to tell stories, coincidentally. Why do you like to tell stories on this team or this athlete? And then he would answer me on maybe he'd go down 20% in the depth of his passion for this. And then I said, no, tell me why you're a unique human being relative to this passion that you have. And then once he started going deeper, Rod, he uncovered this core in him and a love of writing and storytelling. He went and interviewed. I was prepping him for an interview at a major university, and he got the job. And it was because he uncovered the passion and went in depth into his love of writing and storytelling, coincidentally, with that topic. Mm-hmm. And I will never forget that, how he was just like on the surface. And you said, people have difficulties knowing their story. I'm going to ask you, why?
Because they never practiced it and they weren't schooled up on it, and they got their snout too much into technology. I think, yes, it's technology driving everything, of course. But if you sit back and you listen, and you only have a short time to tell your story. If you're with people that, for whatever reason, you're pitching, or they're older, or they're a little closed-minded or in a hurry, and they're a little distracted talking to you, you got to hook them. But you really have to do your homework on the person too. You can say, where did you go to college? I knew where you went to college. You went so-and-so, or your first project was amazing. Then they'll look at you and they'll pay huge respect that you set them up, and that you did that homework ahead of time, and you paid them that respect. And, another thing about this entrepreneurial path is, there's so many different angles. I could go on about it forever, but you really need to prepare when you're meeting with people. And if people just dash from meeting to meeting, you have to personalize each meeting and show that person that you know something about them personally, or some great accomplishment they had. If you open up your pitch with that, they're going to listen to you out of mutual respect.
And that involves wanting to know what someone else is doing so you can connect with them. So when you sit down with somebody, I imagine that you're doing research on companies that you want to help them sell or forward them along, whatever your role as far as in your business is with Briggs Capital or otherwise, is that you're trying to understand these people so to connect with their story, so to understand how they frame their business. How do you go about that as you and your team? How do you educate them on that? Do you have a process?
it just it becomes part of our DNA that how we do it, but it's always about research. But as an entrepreneur, or would-be entrepreneur, or if you're testing the waters and somebody around you, it's true. There was like 700,000 new businesses started, double than was before the pandemic. Everyone's had it. People don't want to go back to the glue factory and have the boss leaning on you with his bad breath. I mean, those days are done. But there's different ways to become an entrepreneur. And, you don't have to stick your whole head in the lion's mouth here. Everyone's like a sports star now. You know what? We're all getting 3 or 5 year contracts. 70% of the population is leaving their jobs before 5 years is out. And so, what? If you're going to do a series of 5-year gigs, the first one, you don't have to swing for the fences. There's a thing called work, love, and play. I took this course a long time ago over at Harvard, and it stuck with me after a while. And I came back to it, where you got to have that balance between work, love, and play, the three things that drive our life. But if you're an entrepreneur, Jesus, you're 80% work, 10% play, maybe 20% or 10% family, but you got to find that equilibrium. But if you're going to jump a couple steps and just go for it, good for you. I think you should, if you're lined up correctly. But get a senior advisor or two around you. Don't go plunging off the rail into the bushes because you don't know what's in the tall grass.
And you discuss a lot of this in your most recent book, The New World of Entrepreneurship, came out in 2021. And you get into the practical nature of the potential pitfalls of an entrepreneur. And I wrote 3 things down that I want to talk to you about. It's exactly what you're talking about right now, which are 1, boundaries, 2, remaining calm, and 3, dealing with stress. Boundaries was huge. Now tell me, it's kind of what you're alluding to right now with the work, love, and play. But even though you're working all the time, you still have to create boundaries, or you're not going to be able to show up for the product, services, or your team. Is that fair?
Yeah, we all know this. We only have so many hours of the day. You stay to your strength, and the areas that aren't strong, you really want to be able to fractionalize the outsourced people until your new gig gets rolling. And those same people are sitting on the sideline waiting to jump on a moving bus like you're creating. And once your bus starts moving and you start getting traction, and the traction usually is post-beta +1. That means you have 3 or 4 clients that have paid for more than 1 month. They like it, and then they're paying again and again. To become an entrepreneur isn't that tricky in many ways. It's not. You just got to be able to handle it. And what you talked about is stress. When I bought my first company, I was taken to the emergency room twice thinking I was having heart attacks. It was, oh my God. And the second time I went in the same emergency room, doctor said, "Rod, you're back again. How you feeling?" The first time he was getting the paddles out thinking and I thought I was having a heart attack. The second he goes, "Rod, just climb off the bed and let's go for a walk." So you have to learn how to deal with your stress. And if it's coming on, you can't let it consume you and destroy your family.
It's so true. And it's faith, Rod, and it's not for everybody, right? And not blind faith. It's calculated and orchestrated faith, meaning like I got to do the work. Like I'm at this thing all day, every day. You know that. This thing it's very difficult. It's very difficult to understand how to maneuver, when to go, when to not, how to get this public, how to make this private. There's a lot of nuance. So in a general sense, if someone's out there and they're a little older, right? Let's say they are, post 40 and they want to start a business. Yep. And you've given a lot of practical advice, but let's skew a little older. What would you say to that individual?
Well, you know what? The post 40 people, their chances of being successful are 3 times as high as people that are younger because they've already built a skill. They're transitioning, they're restless, and they realize that they have more capacity to do something else. So they have the drive, they have industry sector experience, they have some level of cash or money to support themselves, and they're serious as hell because most of the people in that 40, 50 got the household going on, and they're at their peak. So the stress is there. but you know what? They will move faster, quicker, and understand business better. So I greatly encourage people who are looking to take an entrepreneurial bend on things, and you don't have to be making, the next Starship Enterprise, or you can be just doing something to find a lifestyle business. And this is a huge direction in America, and it's becoming more plausible every day. Where, you know what? Okay, your new company, you're not going to make it to 10, 20, 30 million. Make it so you can make 300,000 a year. And if you were making 100 grand or 200 at your job, now you're making 3 on your own time, your own dime, and it's rolling over. And, those businesses are usually service businesses. And then you're just aggregating other service providers, so, there's so many good things that are coming right now. And there's more opportunities now than I've ever seen for people that are, have been in the workforce for, a substantial amount of time.
I want to talk about the young Rod that went into that emergency room twice. So let's talk about the entrepreneur in dealing with failure and fear. Now, I'm not just saying this about you, but you have a fearless, this is what we said at the outset of this conversation. You would give me straightforward advice, and you came from a place of kindness, but also of fearless. How did you build that up? And then you also quote in the book the Theodore Roosevelt, very famous, The Man in the Arena, which I love. Those are the people that go for it. And listen, if you're going to be in your basement and criticize me on X or Twitter or whatever, well, you're not in the arena. You want to get in the arena to be an entrepreneur, then you can criticize me. That's how I took it. But let me ask you, how did you build up your fear of failure, or your lack thereof, I should say?
I'm totally with you. It for me, it became my enemy, but then it became my friend. I turned the fear into motivation, and it was great. And you know what? I always worked my ass off, and I wasn't born rich, so I was just driving hard the whole time, but trying to have fun too. I mean, I've had the good fortune to have been over 60 countries. I'm floating around the globe doing exactly what I want to do in the fourth quarter of my life. And it's awesome. And I just want to see other people who make the jump like you did. I mean, man, there was nobody in a more sought after position. But once I saw you were, moving out to take the entrepreneurial life, I was like, this man is a really interesting cat. And I want to stay in touch and see how he's going. And I'm glad your practice is going so well. But, for us, we're givers. I mean, it's not like we get extremely wealthy doing what we're doing, but you and I teach at university, we do different things. And all across America, there's just such great opportunities.
So let's look at this, Rod. You've written these books. You've put yourself out there. This is very transparent. It's very consistent with your personality and how you conduct yourself business-wise from my lens. What advice would you give somebody, and they're ready to do this business? They're a little bit fearful of putting away the steady paycheck and the health insurance and all the things that go with being part of a job per se, or a career in that regard in the traditional sense. What would you say to that person that's right there ready? Hey, I can do this. What advice would you give them?
The first thing I would say, and it's sort of ass backwards, but I think it's the best thing to do, is to protect your family and your assets from tanking. We all know all the great stories, and we're all like, enough of hearing about all these magnificent, successful people. But you know what? All sorts of bad things or unbeknown things can happen. Don't be signing any bank loans or any promissory notes to anyone around you without having talked to an advisor or somebody that is got some common sense, because you'd be drinking your own Kool-Aid so much that people get crazy to push it over the edge, but they find out that the goalposts are always moved another 10 yards, another 20. It's like the desert and looking for the oasis. You sit there and the people, one last thing. Oh my God, I got another 30, but 50 grand out of but maybe I can get some from my uncle. You really got to be careful. When I hear people, talking like that, I really want to step in, even if I don't know them. And I'm just like, hey, I really want to double check your thinking here. you really should have a strong advisor with you, somebody that you trust. Really get some smart, get at least two different advisors from two different disciplines to coach you before you do anything.
Tremendous advice. Thank you. All right, let's go. All-star moments, and then we'll wrap this up. Okay, these are first thought, best thought. You ready?
Yeah.
Here we go. How do you deal with adversity?
Attack.
What gives you fuel?
Making money and being successful.
3, what does never give up mean to you?
It means never give up until a certain point and then retreat.
4, the value of collaboration.
In today's environment, it's a must.
5, you've hired many people. What does an ideal candidate look like to you?
Someone up front that can present their credentials correctly, someone you can check out their background, and someone that's got some swag.
6, describe yourself as a leader in one sentence.
No nonsense, stay to the truth.
And lastly, what's the difference between a manager and a leader?
The manager follows the leader, but a manager can be so important for the leader.
That's good. Rod, this has been tremendous. You're a great friend, a mentor, and just wisdom,
Yes.
wisdom. Thank you so much.
Okay, hey, you know what? You're the story. You're leading by example as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you, my friend. And we thank Rod very much for being on the show. I have 2 takeaways. Number 1, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you're never doing it alone. You have an advisor, somebody to help you with finances or with social media and marketing, or with ways in which to look at the business from a 50,000-foot level. Have advisors in different areas, friends, family, business people that know these areas of their expertise. They can protect your blind spots. Number 2, know your story. Be able to tell your story. Think about it. Journal. Do whatever you need to do to know what your story is. What are you about? Why are you starting the business? And can you clearly explain it to a future client? Or if you're in a type of business that needs investors, can you explain it? I have been studying entrepreneurship for the better part of 5 or 6 years in launching this business. His advice is so valuable. Know why you're doing it, know what you stand for, and what value do you bring through your unique story and talents. Hope this helped you, everybody. Wonderful conversation with Rod. Have a great week. We'll see you next time on Keep the Line Moving. Every week, you hear guests on this podcast talk about some of their biggest leadership challenges. As a leader, you want to make an impact on those you lead and reach your organization's goals, while also optimizing your time management. Wherever you are in your leadership journey, we could all use some help. This is what we focus on with our group and individual coaching services. To book a call or get more information, email me directly at chrisg@garganoleadership.com or visit our website at garganoleadership.com. For our podcast and video producer, Jack Radutsky, and our marketing coordinator, Savin Narwal, have a great week, everybody.